How's it going? We're going to be doing the week 6 discussion video. We'll be going over chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5 being about the executive, and chapter 6 being about the administrative agencies. The executive is just the president of our country, the president of the United States. Qualifications to get the role as president aren't very strict. You only have to be 35 years of age, a natural born U.S. citizen, and held residency in the U.S. for 14 years or longer. To be elected as president, you need to be elected through the Electoral College. It's in the Electoral College is empowered through the Constitution, and it's just a group of people from Congress picked to vote for the presidency. There's 538 total seats in the Electoral College. Going into presidential powers or executive powers, the main ones is the main thing of the executive is the enforcement of laws, ensure federal laws are faithfully executed, so that people aren't abusing power or going above their means. Kind of ties into checks and balances, and then oversees federal agencies. We'll go a little deeper into that. He's also the executive is also the commander in chief, which is the head of the U.S. Armed Forces. Can deploy military forces and direct military operations only only can formally declare war with the approval of Congress. The executive holds appointment powers, so we can appoint federal judges, appoint ambassadors, and appoint cabinet members. And the cabinet members are usually, people that he's vetted already and looked into and share the same interests. He's you're not going to see somebody on a presidential cabinet that has conflicting views or opinions. It's usually someone who has closely tied ideology and views. He has treaty and diplomatic powers. Can negotiate treaties. Not to say that states can't negotiate treaties, between countries and state, but he can directly negotiate with the country. So country to country. Whereas, Texas can't negotiate completely with, the head of Saudi Arabia. It would have to be through the president. Veto powers, can veto laws passed by Congress. So if he doesn't like a law, he can veto it right there. We've talked about this before too, but then Congress can undo the veto, or I think they call it overriding the veto with the 2/3 majority. So 2/3 of Congress have to vote upon that, which is hard because it's a lot of members of Congress, and it is extremely hard to get all of them to agree upon. Executive orders, so he can issue executive orders to manage operations in the federal government. Must be the executive orders must be in line with the Constitution. Pardoning powers, so he can grant pardons. So basically, ridding of anybody of their crime or criminal behavior. And then he has some emergency powers, which are martial law. Is the main one, and that's basically suspending due process, and gives him the power of a dictator essentially, so he can run the country at exactly how he'd want to see. He doesn't need to go through Congress or do anything at that point. He is doing it all on his own. It's he has complete power over the country, and you can only see martial law declared in times of emergency or crisis when the mass public is at jeopardy. Now looking at chapter 6, we're going to talk about administrative agencies, and the government has grown too big and needs help governing different aspects of their laws they make. So it'd be nearly impossible for Congress to be able to make laws and then for these members of Congress to enforce them. So what they do is they empower subject matter expertise to handle and make regulations revolve around certain topics or certain laws or whatever. So Congress makes a law of a speed limit or whatever, and then they need an agency to run it. So they empower these agencies. They delegate power down to these agencies to be able to make these regulations and enforce them. The rulemaking, so the regulations they make is called quasi legislative, and that's literally just creating the regulations that have the force of law, and then the enforcement of those as well. So, investigating violations, imposing fines or penalties upon that. So, like the FDA might say, you can't put this amount of sugar into your product. If someone does that, the FDA now will investigate that, and if they find it that you've broken the regulation, they can enforce penalties upon you. And then they also have the ability of adjudication, and this is called quasi judicial, and that's just holding hearings, resolving these disputes, and then just like giving decisions in the case, whatever the decision is in like the case. So like the verdict of it.